Let's talk about the banks. Today they made a decision which is if you have a business loan, you don't have to pay it back for the next 6 months. Now, there are some details about this that I'll bring up in a moment, but again, another bit of relief as the corporate sector is stepping up. This is what I like to see. This is the Australia that I am very proud of, that I'm so pleased doesn't just still exist but is thriving right now. Does it mean every response is going to be perfect? No, but I thought it was a chance to have a chat to Ms Bligh, who's the head of the Australian Banking Association, and I got her to explain what their decision today was to help people in business, both big and small.
Today, banks have announced that they will now offer their small big business package of 6 months deferrals on business loans to a considerably larger part of their business book, and it will be all loans up to $10 million for those Australian businesses that bank with an Australian bank. And that will take it to 98% of all business loans with an Australian bank will now be eligible for a 6-month deferral of their payments on their business loans. It's a very sizable commitment. These going from that small business tier from about 3 million of loans up to 10 million. The people in that group employ about 1.5 million Australians. So as this crisis has deepened, banks have stepped in further to help those businesses that are now starting to feel the impact.
So if I was a business, somebody who's struggling right now, maybe they want to make the most of that $150,000 asset write-off. If somebody got a loan, a new loan tomorrow, would they not have to pay it back for 6 months, or is it only for the existing loans?
Well, the announcement today was on existing loans. However, you might recall last Sunday the government announced a small business guarantee loan scheme, which they're doing in partnership with banks to get working capital out to those businesses that can still stay open and are still trying to keep their workers on board. Under that scheme, there will be no repayments for 6 months, and because government is guaranteeing 50% of those loans, they will be at a considerably cheaper interest rate. So this is designed to, for exactly the business that you just described. It is not for refinancing existing businesses. It is to get loans out to those businesses who either don't have any debt at the moment, and to get it out quickly and to get it out very affordably, but also for those businesses that might have some lending and need more working capital.
Someone with a better business mind than I, and probably a little bit more cynical about the announcement today, wanted me to ask you this question, which is commercial finance, or the finance rates that are currently, it's cheaper to borrow money as an institution because of global interest rates, yet the interest rate that you will pay in 6 months' time will still be the same one that you were being charged last week. Now, everyone's got to take a hit here. Should banks be taking a hit on the amount of interest that they have frankly just paused rather than will reduce for customers?
Well, I'd say a couple of things to that, Paul. You're right, the interest will be capitalised, but there will not be a balloon payment or a bullet payment at the end. This will be something that the customer will be able to choose whether or not to extend the length of their loan or to adjust their payments to pay for that 6 months period. Paul, but mostly I would say the only reason Australian banks can even think about doing this, remember this is 98% of their entire business lending, potentially no revenue from those customers for a 6-month period. The only reason they can even contemplate it is because they went into this crisis very well capitalised, with very good strong balance books, very good balance sheets, and we want them to come out of the crisis strong and stable as well. The last thing anyone would want is for effectively a health crisis somewhere down the track to end up as a banking crisis. Banks have got a lot of financial firepower to throw at this thing, and they're throwing it at mortgages. They're providing it now to businesses.
Two last questions on two separate issues. The first is, we know that the laws have now been changed, that basically you can't kick somebody out if they don't pay rent on a commercial property. However, the person who owns that commercial property is still paying back the loans today, next week, next month. What, if anything, is going to be the relief or the discussion for the person who owns commercial property but is getting no revenue from that commercial property, yet still has to pay to provide commercial property to tenants that they can't kick out for not paying?
Paul, the announcement today covers all kinds of businesses up to $10 million, and that includes commercial property owners who have outstanding loans of up to $10 million. Banks can now quantify that. That will cover 89% of all commercial landowners who have a loan with an Australian bank. Now, we know there are some commercial landowners out there, landlords out there, who don't have loans with banks. They might have private equity, they might have family offices, they might have other debt facilities, not with an Australian bank, and that's not something Australian banks can do something for. But for those that do bank with an Australian bank, almost 90% of them have loans under $10 million, and they will qualify for this 6-month deferral of their payments. Banks have made that, for commercial landlords, have made that conditional on the landlord undertaking not to evict or terminate the lease of a tenant. For those landlords who have more than $10 million worth of debt, and there are a number of them, banks stand ready to talk to them about possible relief, but they will have to do it on a case-by-case basis.
Last one, a lot of people write to me talking about how credit card interest rates have not really changed. They've not really changed in the past couple of years, and they're certainly not changing at this particular point in time. Now, I get it. It's an unsecured loan. It's not like a house loan where ultimately, if somebody had to, you could sell the house to get the money back. But at what point do we have to start cutting the interest rates on credit cards? Because that's how a lot of people are going to try to make it through the next little while.
Paul, I'm very aware that, for many people, a credit card, like you say, is going to be a lifeline between now and the end of this thing. What I would say is two things to people. If you are in serious trouble with your credit card, please talk to your bank. There are hardship teams that can come to some other arrangements with you. But for those who are worried about the cost of their existing credit card, banks aren't closed. Banks are out providing full services, and you can shop around.